The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Tom Wilson sipped his coffee and stared at the screens, expecting another boring 8 hours. Then the alarm sounded. "Sir, we're picking up something strange," said Lisa, the communications officer. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "It's not one of ours." Tom put down his mug and moved to her station. "Show me." The signal pulsed on the screen, a pattern unlike anything in their database. It wasn't random noise, but it wasn't human either. "How far?" Tom asked. "About 40 light years from Earth, sir, from the Proxima Centauri system." Tom's heart raced. After years of searching, was this finally it? First contact. Alert command. Now. Within hours, the station buzzed with activity. Scientists, military personnel, and government officials gathered around screens, analyzing the signal. After 3 days of non-stop work, they had their answer. "It's a distress call," announced Dr. Roberts, the lead scientist. "We've decoded enough to know that much." Captain Marcus Reed of the United Earth Defense Force stood with his arms crossed, studying the visual representation of the signal. He was a tall man with a weathered face and short gray hair. 20 years in space had taught him caution. "Are we sure?" Reed asked. "This could be a trap." "The math checks out," Dr. Roberts replied. "This is a civilization asking for help. They call themselves the Luminary." Admiral Jones, the highest-ranking officer present, turned to Reed. "We're assembling a response fleet. You'll command it." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Sir, with respect, we don't know what we're flying into. That's why I'm sending you. Reed, your experience makes you the best choice for first contact." Later that day, Reed reviewed the fully decoded message in his office. The Luminary described themselves as a peaceful species under attack by something called the Void Dominion. Their worlds were falling one by one. What caught Reed's attention was a single line. "We seek aid from the Deathworlders of Earth." Deathworlders. The word made Reed pause. They knew about humans, had classified Earth as a death world, a planet with harsh conditions that produced tough, resilient life forms. The Luminary weren't reaching out blindly. They had chosen Earth specifically. The next morning, Reed met with his assigned crew in the briefing room of the UES Defender, Earth's newest and most advanced battleship. "Ladies and gentlemen," Reed began, looking at the faces around the table. "We're making history. First official contact with alien life, and they're asking for our help." He displayed the signal details on the main screen. "The Luminary are under attack. They've reached out to us specifically because they believe we can help them fight back." Commander Anatoris, his second-in-command, spoke up. "Why us? We've barely left our solar system." "Because," Reed said, "they call us Deathworlders. Apparently, Earth is considered an extremely harsh planet by galactic standards. What's normal for us would kill most alien species." This brought murmurs of surprise from around the table. "We leave in 48 hours, Reed continued. 5 ships with the Defender as our flagship. Our mission is to investigate, establish contact with the Luminary, and determine if and how we can help." As the meeting ended, Reed stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Humanity's first step into the galactic community wouldn't be peaceful exploration, as everyone had hoped. Instead, they were sailing into war. "Captain," called Torres from the doorway, "the crew is ready for inspection." Reed nodded and turned away from the window. "Let's show these aliens what Deathworlders can do." 2 days later, the 5-ship fleet left Earth's orbit. As the engines engaged for the long jump to Proxima Centauri, Reed felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Humanity's first interstellar mission was beginning, and the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous humans could be when protecting others. 3 weeks of faster-than-light travel left the human fleet tense and ready for action. Captain Reed spent most of his time studying the limited information they had on the Luminary and their enemies. Sleep came less easily as they approached their destination. Dropping out of FTL in 5 minutes, Captain, Lieutenant Walker announced, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. Reed nodded. All hands to battle stations. Shields at maximum. The view screens flickered as the fleet returned to normal space at the edge of the luminary system. What they saw made even the most hardened officers gasp. A planet burned before them. Not in the figurative sense. The actual atmosphere was on fire, with massive ships hovering above the dying world. The attackers' vessels resembled dark, jagged crystals that absorbed light rather than reflected it. "My God," whispered Commander Diane Foster, Reed's second-in-command. "They're burning the whole planet." Reed's jaw tightened. "Scan for survivors, and get me a visual on both species." The main screen split to show enhanced images of the two alien races. The luminary looked just as the briefing had described. Tall, elegant beings with semi-transparent skin that glowed from within. The attackers, however, were something else entirely. The Void Dominion soldiers had armored exoskeletons, multiple limbs, and compound eyes that gave them a cold, calculating appearance. "Captain, we're picking up a distress beacon from the far side of the third moon," reported the sensor officer. "Definitely luminary technology." "Take us in, half speed," Reed ordered. "Keep us behind the moon's shadow. The rest of the fleet stays here in reserve." The Intrepid glided silently toward the moon, using its mass to hide from the Void Dominion ships. As they approached the beacon's source, they found a small shuttle craft, damaged and drifting. "Life signs?" Reed asked. "6 luminary, Captain. Weak but stable." Reed made his decision. "Bring them aboard. Medical team to the shuttle bay." The human crew watched in amazement as the luminary were carefully transported aboard. Up close, they seemed even more fragile, their bodies pulsing with soft light. The tallest of them stepped forward, moving with obvious pain but maintaining a dignified posture. "I am Felus, ambassador of the Luminary Collective," the alien said in perfect English, its voice like distant wind chimes. "You must be the humans we called for help." Reed bowed slightly. "Captain Marcus Reed, United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal." Phallus studied Reed with large, pupil-less eyes. "You breathe oxygen. At this pressure. And this gravity doesn't crush you." The ambassador seemed genuinely surprised. "This is actually lower gravity than our homeworld," Reed explained. "The medical team had to adjust their equipment when they discovered the luminary couldn't tolerate Earth-normal oxygen levels or the extreme 68-degree temperature of the ship. What was perfectly comfortable for humans was nearly lethal to the aliens. The Void Dominion found our colony 2 days ago," Phallus explained once they were settled in a specially adjusted conference room. "They've already conquered 3 of our core worlds." "Why are they attacking you?" Reed asked. "Resources, territory. The same reasons war has always existed," Phallus replied sadly. "But mostly because they can. The Concordat species evolved on gentle worlds. We never needed to develop your capacity for violence." A sudden alarm blared through the ship. "Captain, 3 Dominion patrol ships just changed course. They're heading right for us," the tactical officer shouted. Reed stood, already calculating options. "Can we outrun them?" "Negative. Their acceleration exceeds ours by at least 30%. Phallus looked alarmed. "Captain, you must flee. You don't understand what they're capable of." Reed's expression hardened. "With all due respect, Ambassador, I don't think they understand what we're capable of either. Prepare to engage the enemy." As the human ship turned to face the oncoming threat, Phallus and the other luminary watched in a mixture of horror and hope. The Deathworlders were about to fight back. The battle was brief but decisive. The 3 Void Dominion patrol ships had expected to find helpless luminary refugees. Instead, they encountered the UES Intrepid, a warship crewed by creatures they had never fought before. Captain Reed's tactical approach shocked the aliens. Instead of fleeing or attempting to negotiate, the human vessel charged directly at the lead enemy ship, firing a pattern of shots that seemed random but systematically disabled the Dominion vessel's main weapons. "They're breaking formation," Lieutenant Walker reported, a hint of surprise in his voice. "They didn't expect us to attack." Reed nodded grimly. "Signal the fleet. Tell them to jump in now." When the rest of the human ships appeared, the remaining Dominion vessels retreated, leaving their disabled companion behind. Ambassador Thalys stared at the viewscreen, the glow of his skin brightening with what humans would later learn was an expression of astonishment. "In less than 10 minutes, you defeated ships that have terrorized our defenses for months," Thalys said quietly. Reed turned to the ambassador. "We need to find a safe place to regroup. Are there any luminary outposts nearby that haven't been discovered by the Dominion?" 2 days later, the human fleet arrived at a hidden luminary base built into an asteroid belt. The massive rock formations concealed dozens of ships from various species. As the Intrepid docked, Reed and his officers prepared to meet what Thalys called the last hope of free worlds. The meeting chamber was clearly designed for many different species. Some areas were filled with water, others with different atmospheric compositions, all separated by transparent barriers. In the center stood a circular table where representatives could gather. Thalys led Reed, Commander Foster, and 2 security officers into the chamber. The humans felt every alien eye in the room turn to examine them. "I present Captain Marcus Reed and officers of Earth," Thalys announced. "They have already proven their worth by defeating 3 Dominion ships and rescuing our diplomatic team." A tall, willowy alien with 4 arms stepped forward. "I am Coordinator Vallis of the Galactic Concordat. We represent 17 species across this sector of the galaxy." Reed bowed respectfully. "We're here because you asked for our help." "Indeed," Vallis replied, though many of us were skeptical when the luminary suggested contacting Deathworlders. Another alien, this one resembling a collection of floating tentacles, moved closer. They'd breathe oxygen directly into their lungs, at full atmospheric pressure. How do they not burn from the inside? Their bodies contain metal. Another voice called out, "Look at the scans, iron in their blood. Is it true they can survive radiation doses that would kill most of us instantly?" asked yet another. Reed raised his hand for silence. "We're just people who evolved on a world that seems harsh to you, but we're here to help, not to frighten you." "Show them," Thalys suggested quietly. Reed nodded to one of his security officers. The woman stepped forward, removed her helmet, and began performing a series of strength tests, lifting weights that made the aliens murmur in alarm, then demonstrating combat moves that showcased human speed and agility. "The Void Dominion believes they are the superior life form," Thalys explained. "They've never encountered a species with your physical capabilities." Velis moved closer to Reed. "What do you want in return for your help, Captain? What does Earth demand as payment?" "Recognition," Reed answered honestly. "A place in your Concordat. Technology exchange. And the guarantee that when this war is over, humans will be welcomed as equals, not feared as monsters." Before Vallis could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. A frantic voice came over the communication system. "Dominion fleet approaching. They found us." The aliens began to panic, but Reed's voice cut through the chaos. "How many ships?" he demanded. "At least 12 heavy cruisers," came the response. Reed turned to his officers. "Get back to the Intrepid. Prepare all ships for combat." Then he faced the Concordat representatives. "You wanted to see what Deathworlders can do. Watch carefully." The attack on the hidden base became the first true test of human combat effectiveness against the Void Dominion. Though outnumbered, the human fleet moved with a flexibility and unpredictability that confounded the enemy. When it was over, 3 Dominion ships had been destroyed, and the rest retreated. 4 days later, Captain Reed stood in the newly established war room, surrounded by holographic displays of Dominion fleet movements. Commander Diane Foster worked nearby, her dark hair pulled back tightly as she analyzed enemy tactics. "They always attack in the same formations, Foster observed, pointing to the patterns. 3 ships in a triangle, supporting each other. No variation, even when their strategy isn't working. Reed nodded. They value order above adaptation. Thalos entered the room, accompanied by engineers from 3 different Concordat species. The aliens still moved cautiously around the humans, as if unsure how close was safe. "Captain Reed," Thalos greeted, "we've integrated our sensor technology with your fleet's systems. Your ships can now detect Dominion vessels from twice the previous range." "Excellent work," Reed replied. "But technology alone won't win this war. We need a strategy that uses our strengths against their weaknesses." Foster looked up from her console. "I think I've found something, Captain. The Dominion fleet operates on strict hierarchical control. Destroy the command ship, and the others become disorganized." Reed studied the tactical displays. "So we target their leadership. That's a start." One of the alien engineers, a squat being with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head, approached cautiously. "We've analyzed your ship's capabilities. Your vessels can withstand atmospheric pressures that would crush ours. You could potentially use gas giants as cover during attacks." Foster's eyes lit up. Hiding in environments they consider lethal. They'd never expect that. Over the next 3 days, a battle plan emerged that combined human tactical thinking with Concordat technology. Word spread throughout the base about the Deathworlders' plan, and many alien representatives came to observe the preparations. "Is it true," asked a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, "that your species regularly consumes chemicals that would poison other life forms? For pleasure?" Foster laughed. "You mean coffee and alcohol?" "Yes, though I wouldn't recommend either before a battle." The aliens' lights flashed rapidly in what might have been alarm or amusement. In a quiet moment, Reed found himself alone with Thalos on an observation deck overlooking the assembled fleet. "Your concept of sacrifice troubles many in the Concordat," Thalos said softly. "The willingness to risk death for strategic advantage." Reed watched as human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, retrofitting ships with new weapons. "We don't seek death, Thalos, but we accept its possibility as the price of protecting what matters." "What matters to humans, Captain Reed? Why did you really come to help us?" Reed considered the question carefully. Partly curiosity, partly hope for new technologies and alliances, but mostly because it was the right thing to do. Thalos' inner light pulsed gently. "Many species claim moral superiority, Captain. Few demonstrate it through action rather than words." Their conversation was interrupted by Foster's voice over the communication system. "Captain, to the war room. We've located the Dominion staging area." The next morning, the combined fleet prepared for departure. Reed addressed the human crews and their new alien allies from the bridge of the Intrepid. "Today we strike the first major blow against the Void Dominion. They believe themselves superior to all other life forms. Today we prove them wrong." He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. "They've never fought Deathworlders before. Let's show them why that was a mistake." As the fleet moved out, Reed couldn't help but notice the change in how the aliens now looked at his crew. Where there had been fear and uncertainty, he now saw something new: hope. The hunt was on, and humans were leading the charge. The human Concordat fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of a massive gas giant. The swirling orange and red clouds of the planet provided perfect cover for their approach. Ahead, orbiting a barren moon, was the Void Dominion staging area, a collection of sharp-edged ships and a half-built space station. "They haven't detected us yet," Lieutenant Walker reported from his console on the Intrepid. "The gas giant's radiation is masking our signatures, just as we planned." Captain Reed nodded, his face set in grim determination. "All ships, maintain position. Launch fighters on my mark." Across the combined fleet, human pilots climbed into their spacecraft. The Concordat had provided advanced shielding technology, but the fighters themselves were Earth-built, fast, maneuverable, and deadly. The aliens had been shocked to learn that humans could withstand forces that would kill most Concordat species. Remember, Reed's voice came through each pilot's headset. Their ships have a weak point at the junction of the main hull and the weapon arrays. Hit them there, then get clear. Commander Foster stood beside Reed on the bridge. Marine teams are ready for boarding actions, Captain. Mark, Reed ordered quietly. Like angry hornets, 60 human fighters streaked out from behind the gas giant, closing the distance to the Dominion fleet in seconds. The enemy responded with surprising sluggishness. They had grown complacent after months of easy victories against the physically weaker Concordat species. The first wave of human attacks crippled 3 Dominion vessels before their defense systems fully activated. By then, the main Concordat human fleet had emerged from hiding, weapons charged. Boarding teams, launch now, Reed commanded. Specially designed assault craft carried human marines toward the largest disabled Dominion ship. Inside these craft, men and women checked their weapons and armor one last time. Major Alex Daniels, leader of the Marine contingent, addressed his troops through their helmet comms. Remember your training. These bugs have never fought humans before. Use that surprise to your advantage. The boarding craft latched onto the Dominion vessel's hull. Cutting torches burned through the alien metal, and soon the Marines were storming inside. What followed shocked even the human soldiers. The Void Dominion crew, with their chitinous armor and multiple limbs, looked fearsome. But they moved with a slow deliberation that made them easy targets in close combat. Their rigid hierarchy meant they waited for orders rather than responding to immediate threats. Major Daniels led his team toward the bridge, encountering progressively stronger resistance. The Dominion soldiers fought bravely but predictably. By contrast, the humans moved like water, adapting to each new situation with fluid grace. On one of the Concordat vessels, Ambassador Thalos and other alien representatives watched live feeds from cameras mounted on the human Marines' helmets. The footage showed humans moving through environments the aliens considered deadly, sections exposed to vacuum, corridors filled with radiation, chambers with crushing gravity. "They're not even slowing down," whispered one alien observer in awe. "The radiation in that section would kill any of our species in minutes." Thalos nodded. "Now you understand why I sought their help." Back on the Dominion ship, Major Daniels and his team reached the bridge. The final battle was brief but intense. When it was over, the Dominion commander, a larger version of the soldiers, with elaborate markings on its exoskeleton, was captured alive. "Secure the prisoner," Daniels ordered. "Captain Reed wants to question it." Hours later, in a specially constructed holding cell aboard the Intrepid, Reed faced the captured Dominion commander. The alien's compound eyes stared at Reed with cold calculation. "Why do you attack peaceful species?" Reed asked through a translator. The Dominion commander's response was surprisingly straightforward. Biological imperative. The strong consume the weak. It is the natural order. And now, do you still believe you are the strongest? The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been contempt. "You have won a single battle, human. Our empire spans hundreds of systems. This defeat means nothing." Reed leaned closer. "Then you've made a serious error. You've only seen a small fraction of what humanity can do when provoked." As Reed left the holding cell, he received an urgent message from Commander Foster. "Captain, our long-range sensors have detected something. It's a Dominion fleet, much larger than we expected. At least 30 capital ships, heading straight for us." Reed's expression hardened. "So we got their attention. The real war was just beginning." 30 minutes until the Dominion fleet enters weapons range, Lieutenant Walker announced, his voice steady despite the tension on the bridge. Captain Reed studied the tactical display, watching the approaching enemy ships. 30 capital vessels against their combined force of 12. The odds were not in their favor. "We can't run," Commander Foster said quietly. "Even at maximum speed, they would catch us before we reached the jump point." Reed nodded. "Then we fight." Signal all ships to form battle pattern Delta. The human and Concordat vessels moved into a defensive formation. Reed had positioned them near the gas giant's largest moon, using its gravity to limit the directions from which the Dominion could attack. Ambassador Thalos stood silently at the back of the bridge, watching the humans work with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Captain, perhaps you should consider surrender. The Dominion sometimes accepts." "We don't surrender, Ambassador," Reed interrupted. "Not when we can still fight." The first shots came 28 minutes later. The Void Dominion fleet moved with mechanical precision, their formation perfect and unchanging. Energy beams lanced out, striking the shields of the human ships. The battle had begun. For the first hour, Reed's tactics kept the Allied fleet intact. They used the moon's gravity to slingshot their smaller vessels into unexpected attack vectors. Human fighter pilots performed maneuvers that the Dominion computers classified as physically impossible, confusing their targeting systems. But sheer numbers began to tell. One Concordat ship exploded in a silent flash. Then another. The Intrepid shuddered as a direct hit overloaded its shields. "Port shields down to 12%, reported the tactical officer. "We can't take another hit like that." Reed's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. Suddenly, Commander Foster leaned in close. "Captain, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might work." Foster quickly outlined her plan. It was audacious, dangerous, and exactly the kind of unpredictable move the Dominion would never anticipate. "Do it," Reed ordered after a moment's consideration. Foster gathered a small team of volunteers, 15 men and women who understood they might not return. They boarded the Intrepid's fastest shuttle, loaded with a special payload developed by the combined human Concordat engineering teams. As the shuttle launched, Reed ordered the fleet to concentrate fire on a single point in the Dominion formation, creating a narrow gap. The shuttle accelerated toward this opening, taking heavy fire but somehow remaining intact. "They're through," Walker exclaimed. Foster's voice came through the communication system, crackling with interference. "Approaching the Dominion flagship. They're trying to lock us in a tractor beam." "Perfect." The shuttle allowed itself to be captured and pulled into the massive Dominion command ship's docking bay. What happened next stunned even the human crew of the Intrepid. Foster and her team, wearing specialized combat suits, burst from the shuttle. Moving with speed that appeared as blurs on the Dominion security feeds, they fought their way through waves of enemy soldiers. The Void Dominion, for all their biological advantages, had never encountered the raw violence and determination that humans could unleash when cornered. From the Intrepid's bridge, Reed watched the feed from Foster's helmet camera as her team reached the flagship's engine room. "Charges set," Foster reported, her breathing heavy. "But we've taken casualties. 5 of us left." "Get out of there, Commander," Reed ordered. "No time, sir. They've cut off our retreat." Foster's voice remained calm. "It's been an honor, Captain." The explosion that followed tore through the Dominion flagship, setting off a chain reaction that disabled its main weapons and propulsion. Without centralized command, the enemy fleet's perfect formation began to break down. On the Intrepid's bridge, a heavy silence fell. Reed stood motionless, feeling the weight of Foster's sacrifice, and that of her team, pressing down on him. They had gained a chance at victory, but at a terrible cost. "All ships," Reed finally spoke, his voice hard with suppressed emotion, "target the disorganized enemy vessels. Don't waste what Commander Foster has given us." The Allied fleet surged forward, striking at the now vulnerable Dominion ships with renewed purpose. The tide of battle had turned, paid for with human lives. As the Void Dominion fleet began to retreat, Thalos approached Reed. "Your people willingly sacrificed themselves. We do not understand this concept fully." Reed looked at the tactical display, where 12 enemy ships now burned. "Sometimes, Ambassador, survival requires sacrifice. That's a lesson we learned on Earth long ago." News of the human victory spread across the stars faster than light itself. Quantum communication channels, previously used by the Concordat only for desperate warnings of Dominion attacks, now carried tales of the Deathworlders who had done the impossible. 2 months after the battle, Captain Reeves stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Concordat Human Embassy Station. His uniform was crisp, but his face showed the strain of continuous fighting. Beside him, Ambassador Thelus gazed out at the assembled fleet, twice the size it had been when they first engaged the Dominion. 7 more worlds have broken free from Dominion control, Thelus reported, his internal light pulsing with what Reed had learned to recognize as excitement. Your tactics are being adopted by resistance fighters across the sector. Reed nodded, watching as ships from 5 different species practiced formation flying with human vessels. And the Dominion response. That's why I asked you here, Thelus said, his glow dimming slightly. They've sent envoys. They're requesting peace talks. Reed turned to face the ambassador, surprise evident in his expression. They're willing to negotiate, after all their talk about biological superiority. They fear you, Thelus said simply. Reports from captured Dominion officers indicate their leadership is troubled by human capabilities. They've classified Earth as a Class 5 death world, the highest threat designation in their records. Reed allowed himself a small smile. And they should be afraid. We've only deployed a tiny fraction of Earth's military strength. 3 days later, Reed and a delegation of human officers met with representatives from both the Concordat and the Void Dominion aboard a neutral station. The Dominion envoys, taller and more elaborately armored than their soldiers, kept their distance from the humans, their compound eyes constantly tracking every movement. We propose a cessation of hostilities, the lead Dominion representative announced, mandibles clicking between words. All currently occupied Concordat worlds will be granted independence. A buffer zone will be established between our territories. Coordinator Vallis of the Concordat looked to Reed, deferring to the human captain in a way that would have been unthinkable months earlier. And what guarantees do we have that you won't rebuild your forces and attack again? Reed asked. The Dominion envoy's antennae twitched. We will accept monitoring stations at key locations in our territory. And we formally acknowledge the humans as, the aliens seemed to struggle with the next words, as equals in biological capability. Later, in private, Thelus explained to Reed the significance of this concession. In their entire history, they have never acknowledged any species as their equal. This is unprecedented. The peace treaty was signed a week later. As Reed watched the ceremony, he felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in what they had accomplished, grief for those lost, and concern about humanity's new role in galactic politics. We're sending diplomats to Earth, Vallis told Reed after the signing. Your world has been formally invited to join the Galactic Concordat as a founding member of its new military defense force. Reed raised an eyebrow. Defense force. That's a change in policy for the Concordat. Vallis made a gesture equivalent to a shrug. Recent events have taught us that peaceful intentions must sometimes be backed by strength. We hope humans will help us maintain that strength. That evening, Reed stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars. A holographic memorial to Commander Foster and her team glowed softly nearby, the first human names to be honored in the Concordat's Hall of Remembrance. Lieutenant Walker found him there, offering a datapad. Message from Earth Command, sir. They're promoting you to Admiral. You'll be overseeing the integration of human forces with the Concordat Defense Initiative. Reed accepted the datapad with a nod. Everything's changing, isn't it? A few months ago, we were alone in the universe. Now we're the protectors of a galactic alliance. Is that a good thing, sir? Walker asked quietly. Reed looked out at the stars, thinking of all they had seen and learned, the beauty and terror of the wider universe, the price of victory, the weight of responsibility. I think, he said finally, that's exactly what humanity has been preparing for all along. We evolved on a world that forced us to become strong, adaptable, and determined. Now we can use those traits not just to survive, but to protect. As ships from a dozen worlds moved in formation beyond the viewport, Reed understood that the age of humanity's isolation was over. The Deathworlders had arrived on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same again. The gentle hum of the luminary vessel Starlight Seeker filled the command deck as Captain Eldon reviewed the latest star charts. His pale blue skin reflected the soft glow of the control panels, creating ripples of light across his elongated features. The luminary were known throughout the galaxy as diplomats and scholars. Their fragile bodies evolved under the gentle radiation of twin suns. "Captain, we're picking up an unusual signal," called out Navigator Finn, his four-fingered hand hovering over the communications array. "It's fragmented but appears to be a distress call." Eldon glided across the deck, his movements fluid in the ship's low gravity. "Origin: Sector 87, deep space, beyond mapped territories," Finn replied, his large eyes blinking rapidly. The message repeats in several languages, none of which match our records completely. Lieutenant Tara joined them at the console, her scientific curiosity piqued. As the ship's xenobiologist, unknown species fell under her domain. "Can we clean up the audio?" With a few adjustments, the broken message played through the ship's speakers. "Under attack. Civilian casualties. Request immediate assistance. Unknown weapons. Please help." Silence fell across the command deck. The luminary diplomatic fleet had encountered many civilizations, but direct conflict was rare in their corner of the galaxy. Most advanced species had evolved beyond warfare, or at least contained it to their home systems. "We should report this to the Council," suggested First Officer Jem, always the voice of caution. "This could be a trap or a conflict we have no business interfering with." Eldon's inner eyelids flickered thoughtfully. By the time the Council deliberates, whoever sent this call might be gone. "We are the closest vessel. The signal originates from an uncharted system," Tara noted, reviewing the coordinates. "Whoever they are, they're not part of the galactic registry." Eldon made his decision. "Plot a course, Navigator. We will observe only. If there is genuine distress, basic decency demands we at least witness and report." The Starlight Seeker adjusted its path, its engines pulsing with soft blue light as it entered faster than light travel. None of the crew spoke much during the journey, each contemplating what they might find. 3 days later, they arrived at the edge of the system. Even from a distance, the signs of conflict were clear. "Orbital debris consistent with destroyed spacecraft," reported Jem, scanning the system, "and energy signatures that suggest recent weapons discharge." In the viewport, a small rocky planet came into view. Parts of its surface glowed with unnatural fire, visible even from space. "Life signs?" asked Eldon, his voice tight. Tara adjusted her scanners. 2 distinct patterns. One matches the distress signal's origin species. Those readings are scattered and diminishing. The other, she paused. The other shows predatory movement patterns consistent with hunting. Before they could process this information, the ship's alarms blared. 3 sleek, black vessels had appeared from behind the system's outer moon, moving with frightening speed toward the Starlight Seeker. "Evasive action," ordered Eldon, but it was too late. A beam of sickly green light struck their engines, disrupting the drive system. The ship shuddered violently. "We've lost propulsion," cried Finn. "Communications are damaged." On the viewport screen, they could now see the attacking ships clearly. Their hulls were jagged and asymmetrical, covered in what appeared to be bony protrusions. "The Void Hunters," whispered Jem in horror. "I thought they were just stories to frighten younglings." The largest vessel positioned itself directly above them, extending mechanical tendrils that latched onto their hull. The sound of metal being punctured echoed throughout the ship. "Send the distress call," ordered Eldon. "All frequencies, all languages in our database. Someone must hear us." As Tara hurriedly composed the message, she added the coordinates and all data they had gathered on the attackers. The signal burst out in all directions just before the ship's power systems failed completely. In the darkness of the disabled ship, Captain Eldon felt the first tremors of their hull being forcibly breached. Whatever came next, he knew their fate now rested in the hands of whoever might receive their desperate call for help. Admiral Jack Reed stood at the observation window of Earth's orbital command station, watching the blue-green planet rotate slowly beneath him. At 62 years old, his weathered face had seen humanity's expansion through their solar system, from the Mars colonies to the mining operations in Jupiter's moons. Yet despite all their technological advancement, humanity remained alone among the stars. No contact with alien life, though not for lack of trying. "Admiral, you're needed in communications," said Lieutenant Parker, interrupting his thoughts. "They've picked up something unusual." Reed followed her through the station's utilitarian corridors. The command station was built for function, not comfort, a reflection of humanity's practical approach to space. In the communications hub, analysts crowded around a central console. Chief Communications Officer Davis looked up as Reed entered. "Sir, 17 minutes ago, we intercepted this," Davis said, pressing a button. A fragmented message played, the language unlike anything Reed had heard before. After several repeats, it shifted to something closer to human language, though still distorted. "Under attack. Civilian casualties. Void hunters. Request immediate assistance. Coordinates follow." Translation algorithm caught enough to render parts in understandable terms. Davis explained, "Whatever this is, it's not from any human colony." Reed felt his pulse quicken. Origin: Star System HD 7293, approximately 32 light-years from Earth. The message arrived faster than it should have, some kind of technology we don't understand yet. "Show me the visual data," Reed ordered. The main screen displayed a series of images. A rocky planet with burning continents, strange ships with jagged designs, and brief glimpses of creatures being hunted down by predatory bipeds. "What are we looking at, exactly?" Reed asked, though he already suspected the answer. Dr. Emily Winters, the station's xenobiologist, stepped forward. "First contact, Admiral. And it appears we're witnessing an extinction event." The room fell silent as the implications settled over everyone present. "There's more," Davis said quietly. "The message contains specific information about the attackers and the system's coordinates. It's not just a distress call. It's a deliberate request for intervention." Reed studied the data scrolling across the screen. Earth's long isolation had led many to believe the galaxy might be empty, or that humans were simply too primitive to detect advanced civilizations. Now they had proof not only of intelligent alien life, but of interstellar war. How long would it take the 7th Fleet to reach these coordinates? Reed asked. The tactical officer looked startled. "Sir, you're not considering." "How long, Commander?" "With our newest fusion drives running at maximum capacity, 3 days. But Admiral, this is well beyond our jurisdiction. The Defense Council would never." "Call an emergency council meeting," Reed interrupted. 1 hour. The United Defense Council chamber buzzed with tension as Reed presented the evidence. 12 representatives from Earth's unified nations stared at the projection of alien ships attacking helpless colonies. "We have no diplomatic relations with these species," argued Representative Wong. "No treaties obligating our intervention." "They asked for help," Reed countered simply, "and we can provide it." "Earth was classified as a death world, Admiral," reminded Representative Alvarez. "High gravity, high radiation, extreme weather patterns. Our evolution has made us physically stronger than many species might be. If we intervene, we could be seen as aggressors." Reed pointed to the image of the burning planet. "Does this look like a situation where diplomatic nuance matters? Someone is being systematically exterminated." Defense Secretary Blackwell leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral?" "The 7th Fleet is ready for deployment. 3 battleships, 7 destroyers, support craft. We go in, stop the attack, establish communication, and offer assistance. And if these void hunters turn their attention to Earth, asked Representative Chen. Reed's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why Earth is classified as a death world. The vote was closer than Reed expected, 7-5 in favor of intervention. Within hours, the 7th Fleet began preparations, loading extra supplies and weapons. As Reed boarded the flagship Thunderhead, he carried the weight of humanity's first major interstellar decision. Set course for HD 7293, he ordered. Maximum speed. As Earth faded behind them, Reed wondered how the galaxy would receive humanity's unexpected entrance onto the interstellar stage, not as explorers or diplomats, but as warriors answering a desperate call for help. Captain Eldon fought to remain conscious as the Void Hunter commander circled him. They had been brought to what appeared to be an interrogation chamber aboard the main Hunter vessel. The air was thick with a sickly sweet scent that made his vision blur. 3 of his crew members lay unmoving on the floor nearby. "Your species is physically disappointing," the Hunter said, voice clicking through a translation device. "Yet your ship's database suggests you have diplomatic relations with 17 different civilizations." The Hunter's appearance was nightmarish to luminary sensibilities. A tall, insectoid body with multiple limbs ending in fine manipulators, a chitinous exoskeleton with protruding spines, and compound eyes that reflected Eldon's frightened face back at him. "We are peaceful explorers," Eldon managed to say. "The Luminary Confederation will notice our absence and send." A sharp blow cut him off, sending him sprawling across the metal floor. "The Luminary will send nothing in time," the Hunter said. "By then, we will have your defense codes, your star charts, and access to your homeworld's coordinates." Across the room, Lieutenant Tara feigned unconsciousness while carefully observing through slitted eyes. The Void Hunters had overlooked her because her life signs were weaker than the others. Her scientific mind cataloged everything: the Hunters' physiology, their technology, and most importantly, their weaknesses. A sudden vibration ran through the ship, causing the Hunters to chitter anxiously. "Proximity alert," one of them reported. "Unknown vessels approaching at high velocity." The commander turned away from Eldon. "Show me." A holographic display appeared, showing a formation of ships unlike any Terra had ever seen. They were blocky, utilitarian in design, with massive engines and what were unmistakably weapon systems covering their hulls. "Identify," ordered the commander. "Unable to match with known species registry," answered a subordinate. "Design suggests heavy industrial capacity. Weapon signatures detected on all vessels." The commander clicked dismissively. "Another minor species thinking they can challenge us. Prepare battle stations but maintain harvesting operations on the surface. These newcomers will learn as all others have." Terra noticed something the Hunters had missed. While they focused on the approaching fleet, a smaller, faster group of vessels had detached and was circling to approach from a different vector. It was a classic pincer movement, executed with precision. Commander Alex Wells stood in the deployment bay of the Thunderhead, watching his Marine squad prepare for boarding operations. Men and women checked their combat suits, designed to function in virtually any environment, from vacuum to hostile atmospheres. The suit's exoskeletons would multiply their already considerable Earthborne strength. "Final briefing," Wells announced, and the bay fell silent. "Intel from the distress signal suggests 2 species in conflict. Our primary objective is to rescue any survivors and establish contact. Secondary objective is to neutralize the aggressor force enough to end the immediate threat." A Marine raised her hand. "Sir, any information on the physiology of either species?" "Nothing concrete," Wells admitted, "but remote scans suggest the aggressors have an insectoid biology. The victims appear to be humanoid, but with significantly lower bone and muscle density than humans. Prepare for both." Lieutenant Rivera, the squad's xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Remember your training. We're likely to be physically stronger than either species. Low-gravity discipline is essential. Control your movements, or you might injure the very people we're trying to rescue." Wells nodded. "Earth gravity is 2 to 3 times stronger than most habitable worlds we've identified. What feels normal to us will be excessive force to them. The ship's intercom crackled. Commander Wells, this is Admiral Reed. The enemy has detected our main fleet, but appears to have missed our flanking maneuver. Your boarding party has green light in 5 minutes. Wells turned to his squad. This is it, people. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and we're making it in combat. Let's make sure the history books record that when humans finally met aliens, we were the good guys. The Marines checked their weapons one last time. Non-lethal options first, with lethal backups. Despite years of training for this possibility, there was a palpable tension in the air. They were about to become the first humans to set foot on an alien vessel. Ready dropships, Wells ordered. We hit them hard and fast. Remember your training, control your strength, and stay focused. As the bay doors began to open, revealing the starfield beyond, Wells thought about the responsibility on their shoulders. Humanity's introduction to the galaxy would be defined by what happened in the next few hours. The Void Hunter commander hissed in surprise as the tactical display suddenly flashed with multiple warnings. The human fleet had done something no civilized species would attempt. They had dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into the combat zone, skipping the usual deceleration phase. Impossible, barked the commander. No crew could survive such a maneuver. The tactical officer's mandibles clicked nervously. The Q-forces alone should have killed them. Yet their ships are powering weapons and launching smaller craft. On the Thunderhead, Admiral Reed gripped his command chair as the ship stabilized. The high transition had been brutal, even with inertial dampeners, and the crew's rigorous physical training. Several bridge officers looked pale but remained at their stations. Status report, Reed ordered, his voice steady despite the blood pounding in his ears. All ships present and functional, reported the tactical officer. Enemy vessels are responding slowly. They weren't expecting us to arrive like this. Reed allowed himself a grim smile. Humanity's first advantage. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. Launch all fighters. Target their engines and weapon systems. Commander Wells' boarding team has priority approach to the captured diplomatic vessel. The space between the fleets erupted in light as the human ships opened fire. Their weapons were crude by galactic standards, but devastating in their simplicity. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to near-light speed, requiring no exotic technology, but capable of punching through almost any hull. In the Void Hunter interrogation chamber, Lieutenant Terra felt the ship rock violently. The Hunter guard stumbled, unused to the sudden movements. Through the viewports, she could see the human vessels executing combat maneuvers that defied belief, sharp turns and spins that would crush the internal organs of most known species. Their pilots must be using mechanical assistance, one hunter said in disbelief. No biological entity could withstand such forces. Captain Eldon had regained consciousness and was watching with equal amazement. Who are they? He whispered to Terra. I don't know, she replied. But they're fighting for us. A tremendous impact shook the Hunter vessel, sending equipment crashing to the floor. Warning sirens blared as emergency lights bathed the chamber in red. The Hunter commander was frantically issuing orders when another explosion rocked the ship. Hull breach in docking section. A voice announced over the intercom. Unknown life forms boarding. Commander Wells led his squad through the breached airlock, the ship's artificial gravity noticeably lighter than what they were accustomed to on Earth. He signaled for the Marines to adjust their movements accordingly. Remember, we're stronger here than at home, he warned. Step lightly. They encountered their first Void Hunters at a junction. The aliens stood nearly 7 feet tall, their armored exoskeletons gleaming under the emergency lights. One raised a weapon, but Wells was faster. His non-lethal stun round hit the Hunter square in the thorax, sending it crashing against the wall with more force than Wells had intended. Dial it back, he ordered his team. They're lighter than they look. The squad moved deeper into the ship, following the life sign readings that matched the distress signal's originators. They fought through several more groups of Hunters, each engagement revealing more about their new adversaries. The hunters were quick but seemed shocked by the humans' endurance and strength. "They've never fought Deathworlders before," observed Lieutenant Rivera. "Look at how surprised they are when we keep coming after taking hits." They reached a sealed door that their scanners indicated contained several non-hunter life forms. Wells placed a breaching charge on the lock mechanism. "Stand back," he ordered, then called through the door. "We're from Earth. We receive your distress call. Clear away from the door." The explosion was precisely controlled, disabling the lock without damaging the surrounding area. As the door slid open, Wells and his team found themselves face to face with the luminary for the first time. Captain Eldon and Lieutenant Terra stared in shock at the armored humans. Though similar in basic shape to luminary, these creatures moved with a weight and purpose that spoke of a much higher gravity world. When Commander Wells removed his helmet, revealing his human features, Eldon noticed the dense muscle structure and sturdy bone formation, hallmarks of a species evolved under harsh conditions. "Captain Eldon of the luminary vessel Starlight Seeker," Eldon said, attempting the formal greeting protocol. "You have our eternal gratitude." Wells nodded, offering a hand to help the weakened captain stand. "Commander Alex Wells, Earth Defense Fleet. Let's get you out of here." Outside the ship, the battle raged as humanity announced its arrival to the galaxy, not with diplomacy, but with thunder and lightning. The main hangar of the Void Hunter mothership erupted into chaos as 3 squads of human Marines burst through the doors. The Hunter warriors, initially confident in their superior numbers, quickly realized they faced something unlike any species they had encountered before. "Spread out. Secure the perimeter," shouted Sergeant Lewis, her voice calm despite the firefight erupting around them. The humans moved with practiced precision, their combat suits enhancing their already formidable earthborn strength. A hunter warrior charged at Lewis, its clawed limbs slashing at her armor. She sidestepped with surprising speed and struck back with her rifle butt. The blow, which would have merely staggered a human opponent, sent the hunter flying across the hangar floor. "Watch your strength," Lewis reminded her squad. "Remember, we're in lower gravity." Across the hangar, Private Torres found himself cornered by 3 hunters. One of them struck him with an energy weapon that would have incapacitated most galactic species. Torres grunted from the impact but remained standing, much to the hunter's visible shock. "Is that all you've got?" Torres taunted, then returned fire. His measured shots dropped 2 hunters while the third retreated, chittering in what sounded like fear. Lieutenant Terra, being escorted to safety by 2 human Marines, watched the battle with scientific fascination. These humans moved differently than any species she had studied. Heavier, more solid, yet surprisingly quick. When a piece of falling debris struck one Marine's shoulder, he barely seemed to notice. "Your biology must be remarkable," she couldn't help commenting. "How do you withstand such impacts?" The Marine, Private Cooper, shrugged. "Earth gravity's about twice what's here. Stronger bones, denser muscles. Plus, we evolved as persistence hunters. We can take damage and keep going." Terra's scientific mind raced with the implications. "Persistence hunters? You mean you evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion?" "Something like that," Cooper replied casually, as if discussing the weather rather than a terrifying evolutionary adaptation. "Works pretty well against these bugs too." In the ship's command center, Commander Wells and Captain Eldon watched as Admiral Reed's forces systematically disabled the hunter fleet. "Your tactics are unconventional," Eldon observed, still weak but recovering. "No species I know would have attempted such direct confrontation." Wells smiled grimly. "Humans specialize in unconventional. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us daily. High gravity, extreme weather, predators, disease. Makes us stubborn." A communication screen flickered to life, showing the Void Hunter commander. Its compound eyes reflected multiple images of the command center. "What manner of species are you?" the hunter demanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Your biology defies classification." "We're humans," Wells answered simply. From Earth. Earth. The hunter paused, seemingly accessing data. The quarantine death world. Impossible. No sentient life could evolve in such conditions. Wells stepped closer to the screen. Guess you were wrong about that. Here's what happens next. You withdraw all forces from this system immediately, or we continue this demonstration of Death World evolution. The Hunter commander's response was to launch a surprise attack. Hidden weapons in the command center activated, firing at Wells and the Luminary crew. But Wells had anticipated treachery. He dove forward with startling speed, tackling Eldon and Tara to safety while the Marine squad returned fire. What happened next left the Luminary observers speechless. Despite taking a glancing hit to his side, Wells continued fighting, leading his team in a ferocious counterattack. The Marines moved with a coordination that suggested years of training, but it was their physical resilience that truly shocked the watching aliens. One Marine took a direct hit that tore through her armor, but continued advancing, switching her weapon to her uninjured arm without breaking stride. Another was slashed across the chest by a hunter's claw, but responded by grabbing the limb and using the hunter's own momentum to throw it bodily across the room. They just keep fighting, Tara whispered in awe. Even when injured. Eldon nodded slowly, a new understanding dawning. Deathworlders. Their entire evolution prepared them for struggle and survival. The battle ended quickly. The remaining hunters, faced with opponents who seemed almost impossible to stop, surrendered or fled. As medical teams arrived to treat the wounded, Tara noticed something remarkable. The injured humans were joking with each other, seemingly dismissive of wounds that would have been life-threatening to Luminary. "Your species is unlike anything in our records," she told Wells as a medic treated his injury. "The galaxy will never be the same after this day." Wells winced as antiseptic was applied to his wound. For better or worse, humanity has arrived. And we don't back down from a fight. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations had gathered for an emergency session, many having traveled for days to attend. The vast circular room, with its soaring crystal dome and floating translation orbs, had never felt so tense. High Counselor Vex, an ancient being from one of the oldest species in the galaxy, called the session to order. His voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, silenced the murmuring crowd. "We face an unprecedented situation," Vex announced. "A quarantine Deathworld species has made violent first contact with the galactic community." Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber. Human ships engaging the Void Hunters, Marines in combat, and the aftermath of battle. The council members watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. "The species calls itself human," continued Vex. "Their homeworld, Earth, was classified as uninhabitable for sentient life due to its extreme conditions, high gravity, intense radiation, aggressive predators, and unpredictable climate patterns." Representative Zoll of the Trade Federation rose to speak. Yet they not only survived but developed faster than light travel within their first millennium of industrialization. And their first act upon entering the galactic stage was warfare. "Defensive warfare," corrected a new voice. All eyes turned to the chamber entrance where Captain Eldon stood, still bearing marks of his captivity. Beside him, Lieutenant Tara carried a data tablet. The Luminary delegation had been granted special speaking privileges for this session. "The humans responded to our distress call," Eldon said, his voice firm despite his obvious weakness. "Without their intervention, my crew and I would be dead, along with the colony the Void Hunters were systematically destroying." Counselor Nix of the Science Directory adjusted her sensory appendages skeptically. "The humans deployed with battleships, not aid vessels. Their response was military in nature." "Because they correctly assessed the situation," Tara responded, stepping forward. "Our analysis of human communication patterns suggests they understood exactly what was needed. Immediate armed intervention against a superior force." The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. Some council members demanded immediate containment protocols for Earth, while others suggested forming diplomatic relations with this powerful new species. Amidst the chaos, the chamber doors opened again. A hush fell as Admiral Reed entered, flanked by Commander Wells and 2 Marine guards. The humans moved differently than the other species, heavier, more solid, with a natural confidence that came from evolving on a world that constantly tested them. High Counselor Vex's voice cut through the silence. Admiral Reed of Earth, the Council acknowledges your presence but questions your right to be here. Reed stepped forward, his weathered face impassive. We received a distress call. We responded. That's all there is to it. Your response involved destroying 7 Void Hunter vessels and killing hundreds of their warriors, noted Representative Zoll. We offered them the chance to withdraw. Reed replied evenly. They refused. On Earth, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Captain Eldon moved to stand beside Reed. I have submitted my full report on the human intervention. Their actions were proportional and necessary. Despite their physical advantages, they showed remarkable restraint. The chamber quieted as Tara activated her tablet, projecting footage from the rescue mission. The Council watched as human Marines carefully extracted injured Luminari, using their superior strength to clear debris and protect the weaker species. Observe their control, Tara pointed out. Despite evolving on a high-gravity world, they moderated their movements in our environment. They used non-lethal methods when possible. One by one, other species affected by Void Hunter attacks spoke up. The Tellarans had lost 3 colony worlds. The Drift Nomads had seen 2 generation ships destroyed. The pattern was clear. The Hunters had been methodically attacking vulnerable civilizations while the Council deliberated. Reed addressed the chamber again. Humanity doesn't seek conflict, but we won't stand by while predators target those who can't defend themselves. His gaze swept the room. We've lived in isolation, believing we were alone in the universe. Now we know better. The question is not whether humanity belongs in galactic society. We're already here. The question is what kind of neighbors we'll be to each other. As the session continued into the night, opinions remained divided. But one thing was certain. The galaxy had changed forever. The species once dismissed as just another Deathworld curiosity had emerged as a force that could no longer be ignored. 1 month after the emergency Galactic Council session, the observation deck of Earth's Orbital Command Station hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from 7 alien species stood alongside human officials, their vastly different physiologies creating a striking tableau against the backdrop of Earth rotating below. Admiral Reed watched as Captain Eldon, now fully recovered, approached the ceremonial table. The luminary diplomat moved with natural grace in the station's artificial gravity, which had been lowered to accommodate the visitors. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Eldon announced, his translator converting his musical language into human speech. The formation of the Guardian Accord. Defense Secretary Blackwell stepped forward, extending a data tablet containing the treaty. Earth pledges its ships and soldiers to the defense of all signatory worlds. In return, we ask only for cultural and scientific exchange and mutual protection. The Tellaran ambassador, a tall being with iridescent skin, was the first to place his mark on the document. 3 of our colony worlds fell to the Void Hunters before humanity's intervention. We gladly stand with Earth. One by one, representatives from civilizations that had suffered at the Hunters' hands joined the alliance. Each shared similar stories of peaceful development, limited military capacity, and vulnerability to predatory species. Commander Wells, standing at attention with his Marine unit, caught Lieutenant Tara's eye. The luminary scientist had requested permanent assignment as liaison to Earth, fascinated by human biology and culture. Your species changes everything, she had told him during one of their many conversations over the past weeks. The galactic balance has always favored highly evolved intellectual species with limited physical capabilities. Humanity brings something different. Wells remembered his response. On Earth, brains and brawn evolved together out of necessity. We needed both to survive. Now, watching the treaty signing, he understood what that meant on a galactic scale. Earth wasn't just joining the community of worlds, it was reshaping it. In the Council archives, High Counselor Vex reviewed the official classification of Earth. For millennia, the designation had read, D-A-T-H Luloro. D. Quarantine recommended. Now, a new entry had been added. Homine to Guardian species. Diplomatic or elationis estabilized. Vex's assistant entered with the latest reports. The Void Hunters have withdrawn to their home system. Long-range scans indicate they're reinforcing their defenses rather than planning new raids. And the human deployment? Vex asked. 3 Earth vessels now patrol each of the former target systems. They're establishing training programs to help vulnerable species develop basic defensive capabilities. Vex contemplated this information. They move quickly, these humans. It's their nature, the assistant replied. Their entire evolution rewarded rapid adaptation and decisive action. Let us hope, Vex said softly, that they maintain the wisdom to match their strength. Aboard the human flagship Thunderhead, now orbiting the luminary homeworld, Admiral Reeves stood with Captain Eldon in the ship's garden module. The space had been designed to provide Earth-like conditions for the crew during long deployments, but today it hosted several luminary scientists studying Earth plants with obvious excitement. Your vegetation is remarkably robust, Eldon noted, carefully touching a simple fern. Even your plant life evolved to survive harsh conditions. Reed smiled. Humans have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Our world challenged us at every turn, so we adapted. The Council remains divided on the human question, Eldon admitted. Some fear your species will dominate. Others welcome your protection. And you? Reed asked. What does Captain Eldon think? Eldon's gaze turned to the viewport, where both luminary and Earth ships patrolled together. I think the galaxy needed humanity, though many don't realize it yet. For too long, peaceful species have been vulnerable to predators. The Void Hunters were merely the most recent example. A communication officer approached with a tablet. Admiral, we've received a distress call from the Mithran border colony. Possible raider activity. Reed exchanged a glance with Eldon, who nodded solemnly. The Guardian Accord is clear on our response to such calls, the luminary said. Indeed it is, Reed agreed, turning to issue orders. Prepare the fleet, standard humanitarian and defense package. We launch in 30 minutes. As the ship came alive with purposeful activity, Reed reflected on humanity's unexpected role. They had spent centuries looking to the stars, wondering if they were alone, preparing for first contact. No one had imagined that contact would come in the form of a desperate call for help, or that Earth's first galactic role would be as defenders. In the observation deck, Commander Wells watched as Earth receded from view. The blue-green planet that had shaped humanity into exactly what the galaxy needed: survivors, protectors, Deathworlders with a conscience. Behind them, the stars beckoned. Ahead, a galaxy that would never be the same.